look in my logbook here from when I was flying active duty. I can go look at March 8th, 1999, and I see I flew aircraft number 159619, this exact aircraft right here. It was a very dark night out in the middle of the ocean, and no horizon that you can see, so you have to rely on your instruments. We were a wingman, so we were flying in formation, but as you come back for a night trap aboard a ship, they stack you up behind the ship, and one comes down at a time, about one every minute. We had gone over into our stack, and we were just waiting for our turn to come down the chute, as we call it, and land on the carrier, and the whole jet shook violently, like, and went completely black. It was a total electrical failure. The jet's still flying, the engines are still running. We have steam gauges, we call them, some of these things right here that do AOA and pressure to tell us our airspeed. But we had no electronics, nothing that we really need to land aboard the carrier as a solo. So we had to think quickly, couldn't talk on the radio, had no radios. So we went and found our wingman, we knew where he was, we could still see him flashing, but he didn't know that we were Nordo, and we had no electricity, we were completely black, no lights. These are strip lightings that we would use for flying at night up real close, but none of our lights, none of our collision lights, none of our position lights were working. So we got our flashlights out, and we flew near him because we could see him, and showed him our flashlights till we were confident that he could see him and we could approach closer. And so we flew formation on him. The Penguin did an absolutely outstanding job. We had our flashlights on, we could see our instruments. We flew formation all the way down the chute, so you're looking at an aircraft right next to you while you're flying down. And then right about 10-15 seconds before landing, black night, no horizon, they flash their lights in the lead aircraft, they pull away, and you transition to the aircraft carrier. You got some rabbit lights, you got a meatball that tells us what angle we're coming in to land, and about the time that I'm telling this story, bam, we trapped aboard the carrier safely. Wingman was up ahead in case we boltered, as we call it. We missed a wire, we took off again, we could fly formation on him again. But we trapped, and I tell you, that's the most adrenaline I've had in my life. I didn't sleep well that night, you know, your body's shaking a little bit, but she brought us home.
My name is Graham Stapleton, call sign Bones. My grandfather was a pilot in World War II. My father was a naval aviator. My grandfather on my dad's side was an air crewman in a B-17 in the Korean War. So the military is a little bit of a family deal. Top Gun was born from an unacceptable kill-to-loss ratio in the Vietnam War. We had a kill-to-loss ratio of 2-to-1, meaning that for every 2 kills that we scored, one of our own friendly aircraft was shot down. When the first graduates came back to the Vietnam War, that kill-to-loss ratio went from 2-to-1 up to 12-to-1, and it helped turn the tide in the air wars. I think Hollywood has done a number on what people think that Top Gun is all about. I think everybody here is very invested in teaching to make sure that we can win in combat. To me, that is the most important thing, that all of the instructors that I work with, they are less concerned with the glam and everything and more concerned with how can I be the best teacher that I can to ensure that this person that I'm training for 13 weeks, I have 13 weeks of time to train them. How can I make them as lethal as possible so that they can win in combat when the time comes? That is what having the patch means to me, is that you are a gifted instructor and you can teach people that come through these halls so that they can be a force multiplier when they go back to the fleet. So we're teaching the teachers who then go out, teach everybody how to be better at tactically executing aerial combat or air-to-surface employments. By creating somebody who is very talented and who also can teach very well, that person can then leave the course after having learned all that information and go out and teach other people and make the entire fleet better. So you never know who's going to be called upon to take that shot. You need people that are focused on warfighting and teaching everyone so that the entire level of the fleet gets raised so that we can win.
Subject is Lieutenant J.T. Loy. This time I'd like to check the stop run button starting with the flight director.
It operates.
Flight surgeon.
It operates.
Lieutenant, if you push the stop run button on your stick.
It operates.
Okay, the flight deck is manned and ready.
Okay, Lieutenant, just a reminder about your first run. It'll be a gradual onset run. You won't have your G-suit on, and you won't be straining, okay? Just sit there totally relaxed when your lights come down to 30 degrees off the nose, or you have 75% light loss, and I want you to hit the stop the run button, okay?
Okay.
We're ready to go anytime you are.
Ready.
Okay, this is going to be 5.5 Gs for 30 seconds. Run will begin on my mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Okay, hold it for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Okay, you're on top. Look off, look for some of the light loss. Try to hold that air in. Slack off and look for the light loss. Okay, relax, you're down. Okay, it's 7.5 to 15 seconds. Run will begin on my mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exchange. 1, 2, 3. Change. Looking good. Okay, keep training and relax. Good job.
I'm going to talk to you about some of the patches on my flight jacket. Very personal thing, personalized by squadron, personalized by individual. Our squadron had a very specific patch that we used on our left side here. It's a Tomcat with the stars in there, multicolored. Had our squadron VF213 and had Tomcat underneath the patch with the traditional Tomcat there. Coming across right here is always the same thing. It's your warfare designator. Here in my case, a set of Naval Flight Officer wings. I've got my name on there. The squadron designator is always over here. Some folks that flew in multiple squadrons, you know, they'd stack up their patches right on top of them. Pretty cool. Over here, a standard patch we wore on our flight suits for the Black Lions. This is a nice big triangle patch with a Tomcat on it. And then I've got 2 more here that are my personal patches for traditional, when you get 100 traps or a Centurion on a carrier. You get a patch. And so I have 100 traps on the Kitty Hawk for my first cruise, and I got 100 traps on the Carl Vinson for my second cruise. All right, so you see them talking in the movies with their mask off. It's not going to work. So you're looking at a mask that I flew for all my flight hours I used. It's got a microphone right on the inside as oxygen comes through the tube. It's connected to the jet. Also has the electronics for communicating through there. So if this thing's just hanging out, it's very loud in the Tomcat, it wouldn't work. So if you did have it hanging off on one side, you'd just push it up with your elbow, stick it over your face, make your radio call, and then let it hang back down. Little B-roll action while I'm talking here. So this is nice big cutout here for visibility. So if you're looking for somebody, you're looking out, you get very good visibility everywhere on here. You know, like I said, if it gets sunny, you put it down. If it's not, you can put it up. All right, after a great flight dogfighting, tearing into somebody, training, flying fast, pulling G's, having a great time, you get back to the paraloft, you got to get everything off. Rick Roy, call sign Lucky. Just want to welcome you aboard and hope you have a great tire cruise.
Go black hot. See if we can get it now.
Keep it going. The bus came off, huh? Sure did.
Left, 9 o'clock. Still your position.
Laser's firing, looking good.
Blind.
Both of them right there. They're right together.
Still 6-1 for time.
Woo, baby!
My name is Lieutenant Phil Murphy. I was inspired to become a pilot because it's kind of a family business. My dad and grandpa were both naval aviators, and then the inspiration had come from Top Gun, and told all the great stories about the training that we get here and everything, and then how much fun it is to be an instructor and how rewarding it is. So that's kind of how I went down that road. In terms of graduating students that meet the bar here to earn the Top Gun patch, all of the instructors work to an extreme level on a day-to-day basis to make sure that all of our students will graduate at the appropriate level. So it takes a ton of work from every single instructor on staff in order to ensure that every single student graduates at that bar. Brotherhood, camaraderie, teamwork, all things we're very familiar with here. So Top Gun, since it was founded in 1969, has been an organization led by junior officers. We use a peer leadership structure here, which essentially just means that we require everybody to do their job without being asked, if you will. So we get a group of people here as instructors that show up every day motivated to teach, motivated to be experts in their area of expertise. So in terms of legacy, I don't want to be specifically remembered. I just want to be a contributing member of one of the generations of Top Gun instructors that carried the overall legacy of the institution forward and handed it off to the next group in good terms. So the story of fines regarding quoting the Top Gun movies is true. The new movie was actually really cool because a lot of the flying shots are real. And a lot of the flying was executed by other junior officers, so it's in keeping of the tradition of Top Gun being a JO-run organization. And we had fleet aviators from all over the country contributing to those flying shots that were in the new movie.
My name is Michael McBride, call sign Shady. I'm the current Top Gun executive officer. What inspired me to be a Top Gun instructor was I grew up in Kingsville, Texas, small town. Near a jet training base, and my dad is a retired Navy chief. I grew up watching jets fly over my hometown, as well as my dad was a huge inspiration for me to fly aircraft. The way that we operate here at Top Gun is this organization is mainly driven by lieutenants or basically junior 04s. My job clearly is to support them in running the Top Gun course and running the Top Gun syllabus. In that, we have very high standards for the course. So a normal Top Gun instructor is here for approximately 33 to 36 months. The instructors at Top Gun are here to do one thing and one thing only, and that's teach others to win in combat. We want to make the most lethal aviators across the Department of Defense. Most days for a Top Gun instructor run between 14 to 16 hours here. That includes flying, instructing the course, or for that matter, in the simulators working to get better. We pride ourselves on 3 traits for a Top Gun instructor, and that's humble, credible, and approachable. Not just for our Top Gun IPs, but also for our graduates that go out to the fleet. I think there is a brotherhood that definitely exists, and I think that comes from having a very high-functioning culture with top-performing individuals coming in every day and working with kind of the best aviators in the U.S. Navy drives you, motivates you, obviously, clearly to be better, and sets a culture of almost kind of like continuous excellence or continuous pursuit of perfection in everything that we're doing with respect to like aerial combat. I think that the new movie Maverick that came out, I think some of the flying scenes in there were incredible. They were flown by actual lieutenants and fleet aviators. which is important because in the U.S. Navy, that's where all of our talent is. That's where we push it to. Those are our leaders. Those will be our combat performers. So the fact that they had the opportunity to participate in that flight and fly the actors, I think, was a very unique experience and not something that we've seen, more so than the previous movie that actually took place. So I think they did a very good job with it.
Something that some folks don't often acknowledge or talk about is the tremendous sacrifice, the strain on families, on the sailors, the men and women that deploy to serve as serving in the military of the United States. It varies across all of the services, and for the Navy, from my perspective, it was very challenging. You spend a year plus what we call workups, preparing an entire air wing, preparing a ship to be deployed. And the whole air wing comes aboard the ship and off you go, and you don't come back for 6 months. Op tempo in recent times, and it varies at different times, you could come back in 7, 8, 9, 10 months in times of war, sometimes even longer. And that can create a tremendous strain on families without a network, without a support structure from Americans like yourself. They can write letters, send care packages, just let the warriors that are out there sacrificing for the freedom of the United States, let them know you're there for them and you care about them, and that means everything.
My name is Jamie Jameson, and I'm the museum manager at the Florida Air Museum. So I grew up, I'm a military brat. My dad was in the Navy, so some of my earliest memories are watching movies like Top Gun and going, oh, there's Dad. There's Dad. Every character was Dad. And then going out to the runways at North Island in San Diego and watching the aircraft take off and land and waving at the pilots. So the sound of the aircraft, even it's kind of funny, the smell of the oil, all of that brings back memories of my childhood and just makes it feel like home when I'm here. I've been with the Florida Air Museum for about 3 years. I started in September of 2017. The museum itself is made up of a collection of assets. They're either artifacts that belong to people or individuals, but really help to tell the story of aviation in the state of Florida. I love having student groups in here. We talk about a pilot named Ruth Elder, and she was a female pilot from Lakeland that tried to make the first transatlantic crossing before even Amelia Earhart does. So it's really fascinating to kind of weave into those stories that aren't really well known, but that emphasize the role of aviation in the state of Florida. So my favorite plane on property, oh, that's like asking who my favorite child is, but my favorite plane that I kind of come to time and time again is Loving's Love. It's a great little aircraft. It is a replica of an original design by Neil Loving, and Neil Loving was a pilot who had lost the use of his legs in a tragic glider accident, and he specifically designed this aircraft so that he could fly it with his limited leg use. What's really cool about the story is that this replica is actually built by an SR-71 pilot. His favorite thing was this story about this little racing airplane that Neil Loving built, and he loved it so much that he built his own replica. He actually flew it to visit Mr. Loving and show him, I was so inspired by you, here's what I built. So one of the great things about the Florida Air Museum is we have our own on-site restoration building. The Bueller Restoration Building works on the aircraft that you'll see on display in the museum, as well as some of our flying assets, meaning aircraft that we can take flying individually. Really interesting project that they're working on right now is called the Spirit of Lakeland. And the Spirit of Lakeland is a partnership with Able Flight that allows those with varying disabilities the opportunity to earn their private pilot license. We're very fortunate to have 3 Navy aircraft on loan for the United States Naval Aviation Museum in Pensacola. They include the Sea Dart, the Vertical Riser, and of course the F-14 Tomcat. And the F-14 Tomcat, when it was retired, it flew down here to Lakeland, landed at our little airport here in Lakeland, and they taxied it over to where it is on display currently at the moment. An interesting event happened. The National Naval Heritage Command said, hey, we need to come inspect the aircraft. And I said, okay. So I got everything ready, and I was ready for this big inspection, and they come and they do it, and they said, okay, well, we've done the inspection. You'll be happy to know that it's not radioactive. And I said, oh, I didn't know that that was something I needed to be worried about. But then, when I stopped and considered the career of this aircraft, what types of carriers it might have been, the emergence of the nuclear forward deployed aircraft carriers, that sort of thing at the time, I said, Yeah, I guess that's something that I'm really glad they came and investigated on. One of my favorite things about the museum is our interaction with our youth audience. The best thing about museums is when you have a generational conversation. So you have older members of society bringing their younger grandchildren, nieces, nephews, and they walk around the museum and they can talk about, oh, I built an airplane like that, when they're looking at the experimental and the kit. Or if they were in the military, coming in and saying, hey, I flew the F-14. You know, your old man, he was that cool guy that got to fly it. Or, you know, talking about their experiences on the aircraft carriers or being forward deployed. You can have a museum, but if you don't have those conversations and experiences, the meaning gets lost. It's just kind of stuff. So what I enjoy about it is that really aviation is extremely personal and people love to talk about it and they love to share what they know. And I'm always happy at the end of the day when I see a family come in and get to share their experience.
One of the nicknames they gave the Tomcat over the years was the turkey. Because it's got these big wings, swings out, it kind of looks like a turkey flying down low. So if the Tomcat's a turkey, as is affectionately known, usually it's turkey feathers. So this is the exhaust section of the engine, and this exhaust area can close and open as a function of whatever the throttle setting is. So when you're subsonic and you don't have the afterburners going, these things will be closed up in a nice tight circle here to continue to accelerate that airflow outside of the back end here. And this whole big section back here in the engine that you're looking at, you know, from here halfway forward there is an afterburning section, pretty much throwing raw fuel into the back end, lighting it off, call it the afterburner or the blower, or light the cans as we like to say. When we do that, these turkey feathers open up because as you light those cans, that airflow ignites and becomes supersonic. In order to accelerate supersonic airflow, we're actually going to do the opposite of what you'd think of as a nozzle like on your garden hose, and we're going to open up. And this opening, this larger area by about 10%, is going to accelerate the airflow out the back, giving you even more efficiency using the afterburners. Tail hook, it's sitting back here. This is what stops you every time. Got a tail hook right here. This guy sits up when you're flying around, but you'd put it down. You know, right now they've got it wired up for safety, but it would come all the way down. It's held down by some snubber pressure, and it's what grabs the wire when you're landing on the carrier. We also have a dump mast right here, and when we needed to, you needed to get down to max trap, or the maximum amount of weight you could have when you're trapping aboard the carrier, you'd have to dump some fuel sometimes, and so we could dump a lot of fuel out of this dump mast. Fortunately, in the Tomcat with its afterburners, we could burn gas faster than we could dump gas. So why would you use a dump when you can just burn it up and have some fun and go fast, which is what we normally do.
I feel like I can fly this thing now. You've given me that adrenaline rush.
It's a beautiful bird, and it's amazing that coming back and standing next to one after so many years. It just brings back so many fond memories. I'm glad we could share them.
My name is Ed Young. I'm the Executive Director of the Aerospace Center for Excellence. The Aerospace Center for Excellence is the 20-acre campus on the south end of the Lakeland Linder International Airport, which includes the Florida Air Museum, the Central Florida Aerospace Academy, the Tom Davis Educational Center, the Piedmont Laboratory, the Bueller Aviation Restoration Center, and a fully functional 727 classroom. The Florida Air Museum is dedicated to aviation in Florida. It's actually been declared by the state of Florida to be the official aviation museum and education center. We try to collect artifacts that are related to Florida history. The Bueller Restoration Center is directly across the street from the Florida Air Museum. In April of last year, we received a giant box with hundreds of parts in it, and we are now constructing an aircraft. And that aircraft is being specifically designed to help people with disabilities, particularly paraplegics and quadriplegics, learn how to fly. The program that we're using, Able Flight, has put wings on over 100 pilots so far that have disabilities. The great thing about the program is that when you're in the air, you are simply a pilot. You are not a paraplegic, you're not a quadriplegic, you're a pilot. And the avionics are mounted into this and then mounted to a TV bracket. So basically what you can do is come up with your wheelchair, position yourself, put yourself in the aircraft, and then pull the avionics panel back across to you. There's also a bar right here that it's not back from the metal shop, but there's a bar right here that controls the rudders. That way, if you don't have use of your legs, you can still control the airplane. And then there's a center bar that controls the ailerons. So everyone who works in the Florida Air Museum has a different specialty or different interest. As it happens, I'm an aviation historian, and I love the ones that are tied deeply to history, including the Baby Laird, which was built in 1913 by Matty Laird, who became one of the most innovative individuals in terms of the golden age of aviation. He hired a few people that aviation people are familiar with: Clyde Cessna, Lloyd Stearman, and Walter Beach. The International Council of Airshow Performers has their Hall of Fame here. There are airshow planes. In fact, there's an airshow plane right above me, the Red Baron. I do love the Baby Laird. Matty Laird was absolutely essential in terms of Kansas aviation. Kansas is actually considered the air capital of the world because so many of the aircraft are still produced there. 85% of all of the general aviation fleet are still produced in Kansas. Well, Matty Laird, he was crazy if you think about it. He took parts off of a bicycle. He took a glider wing that he had, he put them together, and at the time, in 1913, he was earning $300 per flight, which is about 10 grand a day just to fly that thing. Katherine Johnson borrowed his next version of that, called the Bone Shaker, and she flew it in China and Japan and really convinced people in that part of the world that that was a legitimate way to travel. Air travel was going to be the next big thing. I do love that plane. I climb in it every time I get a chance. The other really super cool one, the Ford Flivver back there. So Ford really had this notion that they were going to create the Model T of airplanes, and they did a Ford reliability tour in 1926, 1927. They really thought that plane was gonna be parked in everybody's garage. The Pete and Pull, I love the Pete and Pull. So originally, when they built the Pete and Pulls, they used Model T engines, and the radiator would sit in front of you. So you had to land it by guess, by feel, by looking out the side of the plane because the engine was right directly in front of you. That plane flew in here, and all those awards that you see in front of that plane were awards that plane won because it was so cool. The design was so neat. And it was so true to the history. But that's a pretty amazing plane. The Florida Air Museum is a unique collection of specifically Florida items and then a little bit of militaria. So you have a chance to walk into the history of Florida, trace the roots of some great aviators from across the state, see some of the airplanes that really made a huge difference in terms of the development of aviation. The very first commercial flight, most people don't know, was a scheduled flight in Tampa Bay. It was a seaplane that flew from one side of the bay to the other. Florida has been incredibly important in terms of aviation because we have so many good days of the year to fly. The reason that the Space Center is here is because this is an awesome place for aviation type weather and aviation development.
At the end of the day, he's used to going 750 plus miles per hour. And now we're going to take a little ride on your little SR-20. Up and away. And the only reason I like riding, or I'm willing to ride, on a single-engine aircraft like Cirrus is because it has a parachute. Over 500 feet, right?
Over 500 feet.
See? I should be a pilot.
He's ready to go.
I'm qualified.
You're qualified to make that thing happen if you had to.
Lucky.
We don't ever want to use that, though. That would be unlucky.
I'd rather go in one of these, though. You're going to make that happen?
We're going to try.
F-35?
No, that's single seat only.
Oh, is it?
F-18F. It's a two-seater.
F-18F. Let's go. Thanks, bud.
Right on.
All right, let's go drink.
Nah.